used to believe that the greatest love a woman could ever know was the love she pours into the child she raises. I poured everything into my son, Marcus. My time, my dreams, my joy, and eventually my money. $76,000 to be exact. Money I worked my entire life to save. Money I never imagined would become the reason I'd be standing in my kitchen late at night, trembling so hard the glass in my hand nearly slips and shatters. I'm a 54-year-old widow. My husband Charles passed 3 years ago from a sudden heart attack. One minute we were laughing over a silly game show, and the next, I was a woman alone in a house that suddenly felt too big. My son was my comfort through grief, or so I thought. He was there for me, hugging me through tears, reminding me that we still had each other. I clung to that. I clung to him. Marcus always loved big dreams. He'd talk about opening his own business. "Mom, I'm gonna make us proud." And I'd smile, because that's all I ever wanted, to see him thrive, to see him become better than where we came from. When he told me he needed money to start a surefire business venture, I didn't hesitate. Not when it was my baby asking. He insisted he'd pay me back within months. We drew up some informal plan on scrap paper at my dining room table. Hardly legal, but I trusted blood more than contracts. I should have paid better attention. The tone shifts in his voice, the way he'd dodge my questions about how things were going, the way he started talking fast, eyes shifting, excuses piling up like dirty laundry. Still, I pushed aside doubt. A mother's heart can be too forgiving for her own good. Tonight, though, the truth slapped me so hard I swear I physically staggered. I was cleaning up after dinner, a lonely habit I haven't fully adjusted to since Charles passed, when I got a call, a woman's voice. Smooth, polished, cold. "Is this Mrs. Evelyn Carter?" I froze. No one calls me formally unless it's bad news. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Centessa Financial Recovery. We're reaching out regarding outstanding debts in your name involving a business loan default." My heart stalled. I didn't take a business loan." "Oh, that's interesting," the woman said, rustling papers. "Because we have documents signed electronically by someone with access to your Social Security and retirement savings accounts." Ice crawled up my back. "There must be a mistake," I whispered. "I haven't—" She cut me off. "Mrs. Carter, I'm afraid the balance is $76,000. If we cannot resolve this debt, we will be forced to move forward with asset seizure." My knees buckled. I braced myself against the kitchen counter as my blood seemed to drain right out of my body. I didn't." My voice broke. "Who would do that?" Her answer was a knife. "Your son, Marcus Carter, is listed as the co-signer." The room spun. Silence filled my ears like rushing water as she continued talking. Legal threats, payment demands, but all I could hear was Marcus's laugh from when he was a little boy running through sprinklers on summer days. My sweet boy who used to bring me dandelions like they were roses. I hung up without saying goodbye. I sank to the floor. My breath came out in ragged shivers. I trusted him with everything. My life, my future. How could he? The front door opened. "Ma? You up?" Marcus strolled into the kitchen with that cocky energy he always carried, like the world owed him a favor. I looked up at him, my tears drying into something harsher, hotter. "Sit down," I said, my voice startling even me. It came out low, steady, like thunder gathering behind clouds. He hesitated, eyes narrowing. "What's going on?" I stared straight into the eyes I once thought only held goodness. "Did you take out a loan in my name?" His face twitched, a tiny flash of guilt, then quick denial. "What? No, who told you?" "I know," I snapped, rising slowly. "Don't you dare lie to me, Marcus." For a moment, his mouth opened, a lie ready, poised, but then he shrugged, almost casually. "Look, Ma, it's complicated, but the business needs more time. I was gonna tell you." $76,000? My voice cracked on the number. "Ma, chill. We'll fix it." "We?" I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You stole from me." His expression hardened. The boy I raised seemed to vanish right there. In his place stood a stranger with my son's face. "You wouldn't give me the money otherwise. You're too scared to take risks." I stepped back like he slapped me. scared? I buried a husband, raised a child alone, worked 3 jobs to keep our lights on. And this man called me scared? That money was my retirement, my safety. Your father died working himself to the bone so we'd have that. He rolled his eyes. Rolled his eyes. Don't guilt trip me with Dad, he muttered. This is business. I felt something break inside me, something sacred. He reached for my arm, like I was overreacting. Mom, we'll get through this, you and me. I yanked away. No, not you and me. Not anymore. His jaw tightened. You're gonna kick me out over money? My heart screamed yes, because you left me for dead over money. But before I could answer, before I could breathe, he leaned in close. Careful, Ma, he whispered darkly. Don't make this worse than it has to be. A chill raced down my spine. Are you threatening me? I whispered. Marcus just smirked and walked toward the staircase like this was still his home, like he didn't just set my entire life on fire. I stood there shaking, watching the son I raised disappear up those steps, and wondered how long this monster had been hiding inside the boy I loved. My phone buzzed again. The same number, the same financial company, reality tightening like a noose. Tomorrow, they would move to take everything I had left. If I didn't act fast, I might not only lose my money, but my home. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I even closed my eyes. I sat on the living room couch as the darkness outside slowly surrendered to dawn, my hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea I'd made hours ago. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting. Watching, judging. Every tick of the clock reminded me of the countdown until that financial company would come for what I had left, until Marcus woke up and pretended everything was normal, until I had to become a woman I wasn't raised to be, one who stands up to her own blood. The sun rose with a softness I didn't feel inside. My chest ached, a pressure so tight I wondered if hearts could explode purely from betrayal. I touched the wedding ring still hanging on my necklace, Charles's ring, his last gift to me before the world stole him away. Baby, I whispered into the quiet, I don't know how to fight our own child. I stood on shaky legs, determined to think clearly. No tears, no emotional spirals. I needed answers. Real ones. And I needed documentation, proof, something that could save me from losing everything Charles and I built through decades of sacrifice. I tiptoed upstairs to Marcus's room. I paused at his door, remembering the little boy who once taped glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling and talked about being an astronaut. Now that ceiling was bare. His life was somewhere else, somewhere far from me. I pushed the door open slowly. The smell hit first. Cologne, stale fries, marijuana. Dirty clothes were everywhere, covering a floor that once held toy trains and mismatched socks. His laptop sat half open on the bed, notifications lighting up the screen like mini explosions. My heart thudded as I realized this might be my only chance to see the truth for myself. I sat and opened his emails, and there it was, a full paper trail of transactions under my name, forged signatures, fake authorizations, withdrawals that made my stomach twist. So many lies, so many bold, reckless decisions, all tied back to him. Messages popped up from someone named Trey. Bro, you still got her creds, right? We need more up front if we want to flip this. You better keep your mom in check. Don't let her ruin the play. We move fast, then we out. Miami type fast. Tears blurred my vision. He was planning to run, to leave me drowning in debt while he lived out some fantasy life. A mother's heart can break over and over and still somehow keep beating. I clicked into his notes folder. There, tucked between music links and grocery reminders, was a message titled, "The Truth." I hesitated, but opened it. Ma, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I just wanted one win, one thing that made me feel like a man again. I know it's wrong, but I thought I'd fix it before you ever found out. My breath trembled out. For a moment, I wanted to hold him, like when he was 5, and scratched his knee, crying that the pain would never go away. But then the memory of the threats from the night before hardened inside me. My son wasn't trying to fix anything. He was sinking us both into a pit he helped dig. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. Proof. I needed proof. Suddenly, footsteps. Heavy, fast. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. Marcus appeared in the doorway, eyes wide open with fury once he saw the laptop in front front of me. "What the hell are you doing?" "I'm saving what's left of my life," I said slowly. He rushed forward and slammed the laptop shut, his breath sour with anger. "You think you're gonna take this away from me after everything I'm trying to do?" My hand shook, but I held my ground. "You stole from me, Marcus. You lied to me. I borrowed from you. Like you never borrowed from Dad when you needed help?" There it was. The manipulation, the blame shifting, the way he twisted love into debt. "I gave your father every ounce of support I had," I said firmly. "He gave it willingly. You took it without asking." His eyes darted around the room like he was searching for the right lie to make everything okay again. But there was no lie for this. He stepped closer, too close. "Don't ruin this for me." The boy I raised was gone, replaced by someone who saw me as an obstacle instead of a home. "You need to leave," I whispered. "Today." His expression flickered, confusion, disbelief, then pure rage. "You're choosing money over your son?" "No," I said, voice trembling. "I'm choosing survival. I'm choosing dignity, and I'm choosing the husband who trusted me to protect our life." He glared. "If I walk out that door, I ain't coming back." A fresh tear slid down my cheek. "Then I guess that's your choice." For a second, a single flicker, I saw fear in his eyes. Not remorse, not love, fear of losing the safety net he milked dry. Then he grabbed his phone, shoved clothes into a duffel bag, and stormed past me. The front door slammed so hard it rattled the walls. Silence. The kind that makes you fold into yourself. I stood in the hallway alone, the echo of his departure still vibrating through the house like aftershocks from a quake. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new voicemail from the financial company. The message was blunt. "This is your final notice. You must make a $10,000 immediate payment today or foreclosure proceedings will begin." $10,000. Today, I felt faint, like the ground beneath me was slowly disappearing. I leaned against the wall for support as a wave of dread crashed into me. Marcus was gone. The money was gone. My options were shrinking fast, except I wasn't done fighting. I refused to be a casualty of my own child's poor choices. I wiped my tears, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. If I was going to save my home, save myself, I needed help. But the one person I was terrified to ask, the one person who had warned me about Marcus over and over, was my estranged sister, Valeria. And going to her meant opening wounds I had buried deep, wounds that might bleed even more before they healed. I stared at my car keys sitting in the small ceramic dish by the front door, the one Marcus made for me in second grade, lopsided, painted with chipped blue glaze. "Best mom," etched into the side with a child's clumsy pride, a gift from a boy who once adored me. Now, it felt like a cruel reminder of how fast innocence can rot into betrayal. My hand shook as I picked up the keys. The thought of confronting my sister twisted my stomach into knots. Valeria and I used to be inseparable. We were the Carter girls, two black queens who swore we'd take on the world together. But family has a way of splintering when tragedy and pride get involved. The last time we spoke, it wasn't pretty. She'd warned me about Marcus, told me he was taking advantage of me. I'd accused her of jealousy, of never having kids of her own and therefore not understanding a mother's heart. She'd walked away with tears in her angry eyes saying, "One day, Evelyn, you're going to see he's playing you. And when you fall, I hope you let me help you up." That was a year ago. Now, here I was, falling hard. The drive to Valeria's house was only 20 minutes, but it felt like I was traveling through years of regret. The radio hummed softly, but my thoughts were louder. Guilt, fear, humiliation, all competing for space in my chest. I kept replaying Marcus's departure in my head, the way he didn't look back, the way he made me feel disposable. When I pulled onto Valeria's street, lined with neatly trimmed lawns and fall wreaths on every door, I almost turned back. Pride clawed at me. Part of me still wanted to believe I could fix this on my own, that I didn't need anyone, but I did, desperately. I parked in front of her townhouse, noticing her silver SUV in the driveway. She was home. No escape now. I swallowed hard, climbed out, and forced my legs to move. Before I could knock, The door opened. Valeria stood there, arms crossed, wearing a purple robe and satin headscarf like she had been watching from the peephole. Her eyes scanned my face, analyzing, searching, and in an instant, hers softened with concern. "You look bad," she said, not unkindly. "I know," I whispered. She stepped aside without another word. The warmth of her home wrapped around me, cinnamon candles burning, gospel music faintly playing from the kitchen, the comforting scent of Sunday dinners long gone. I didn't realize how much I missed this place. We sat at her dining table. She poured me a cup of coffee, the kind with too much creamer the way I liked it. She sat across from me and waited. I could feel her patience like a spotlight, urging me to speak. "Marcus stole $76,000 from me," I finally whispered. The words came out jagged and painful. Saying them aloud made them too real. Valeria blinked slowly, but didn't look surprised. "How? Fraudulent loans in my name, and now a company is threatening to take the house. $10,000 by today." Her breath hitched. "Lord have mercy." She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. That simple touch cracked me open. Tears streamed down my face before I could stop them. I thought I was helping him. I thought I was being a good mother. "You are a good mother," she said firmly. "But Marcus, he ain't acting like a good son." Her validation felt like oxygen. She stood, pacing a little. "We need a plan. We need protection. We need receipts, paperwork, everything." I showed her the photos on my phone, the emails, the loan approvals, the message he wrote. Her face hardened with each swipe. "That boy," she muttered, shaking her head. "He's in deep with the wrong people." "I know," my voice cracked, "and I can't save him anymore." She looked at me, really looked. "You can still love him, Evelyn, but loving somebody don't mean letting them destroy you." I pressed my trembling hands to my lips. "What do I do?" "We lawyer up. We notify the authorities. You're the victim here, not the criminal." The word authority stung like a slap. The idea of involving cops, courts, of putting my own child in danger made my stomach twist violently. "I can't. He's my son." "And you think he was worried about being your son when he put your future on the line?" She countered gently. "Sometimes the only way to save somebody is to let them face consequences." I hated that she was right. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and her eyebrows shot up. "It's Marcus." My heart stopped. "Answer," I whispered. Valeria put the phone on speaker and pressed accept. "Hey, Auntie. Mom there with you?" Valeria's eyes met mine. A silent question. I nodded. "Yes, she is," she replied coolly. "You got something you need to say?" Marcus let out a fake laugh. "Look, I know Mom's mad, but I just need a couple hours. I'm fixing everything. I'm just laying low for a minute." "Laying low?" Valeria repeated. "Who you hiding from, Marcus?" Silence crackled through the line. Then a shift in his tone. "Tell Mom I'll be home tonight. I'll straighten it all out. Just keep that financial company off my back, okay? Don't do anything stupid." I flinched. Stupid? That word again. Valeria leaned toward the phone. "Marcus, listen to me. This ain't a game. These are serious consequences." But he was already defensive. "Y'all always blow stuff up way too big. Just stay out of my business." Then the line went dead. My breath came in shaky gasps. Valeria reached over and grabbed both my hands tight. "He's scared. But scared people do dangerous things. We need to protect you first." I nodded slowly. "I'm ready." For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a tiny spark of strength returning. My sister's presence was stitching together the parts of me that betrayal had ripped apart. "We're calling your credit union," she said with resolution. "Then we're contacting that loan company. We'll set up a meeting with a lawyer. I'll help you find the money for the urgent payment." "Val," I whispered, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve—" "Yes, you do. You deserve love, support, and justice." She pulled me into a hug, a real one, tight, unwavering. I hadn't been held like that since Charles died. For a brief, fragile moment, I felt safe. But that peace shattered when a loud bang hit the front door, then another, Harder. Valeria stiffened, eyes nervous. Who the hell? We heard shouting. A male voice. Open up! Marcus sent us! My blood ran ice cold. Valeria grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back of the house as fists continued pounding against the wood. This wasn't just about stolen money anymore. My son's mistakes had followed us here, and now danger was on the other side of that door. The banging on Valeria's front door grew louder, more violent, each strike echoing like thunder through the hallway. My pulse raced so fast I thought I might faint right there on her hardwood floor. Valeria tightened her grip on my arm and whispered, "Don't make a sound." But the men outside were not the type to be ignored. "Marcus owes us," one voice snarled from the porch. "Open this door before we break it down." Their threats hit me harder than the pounding. Marcus had dragged strangers, dangerous strangers, into the heart of our family. And they weren't just here for him, they were here for me, for the money he stole. Valeria guided me quickly through the kitchen toward the back door, but before we could reach it, one of the men kicked the front door again. The deadbolt cracked with a sharp snap that made me jump. "We need to call 911. I whispered, my voice barely holding together. Valeria nodded, already pulling out her phone, but as she lifted it to her ear, we heard the unmistakable sound of wood splintering. The door burst inward. They were inside. We froze. Two men stepped into the living room, one tall and broad with tattoos crawling up his neck, the other thinner, eyes sharp and restless like a feral cat. Both wore hoodies and mask gaiters pulled up over their mouths. They scanned the room, footsteps heavy, deliberate. Valeria pulled me backward into the pantry, a tiny space beside the kitchen lined with canned goods and baking ingredients. She clicked the door shut silently and pressed her back against it, holding the handle tight. My breath hitched as we stood in pitch darkness, our hearts pounding in the suffocating silence. I could hear the men rifling through drawers, knocking over furniture, searching. "Check the back," Tattooed Neck barked. Their steps came closer. My knees trembled uncontrollably. I covered my mouth with both hands and prayed they wouldn't come any further. Prayed they'd leave. Prayed Marcus hadn't ruined our lives beyond repair. Valeria still had the phone in her other hand, shaking. She pulled up the keypad slowly. I heard one soft beep as she dialed. The footsteps stopped. Thin man's voice slithered through the air. "You hear that?" Valeria's eyes widened, tears forming. I had never seen my sister look scared of anything. Until now. "You think you can hide?" he yelled. A loud crash, something metal hitting the floor, then his footsteps shifted direction, straight toward us. We were seconds away from being found. Suddenly, Valeria inhaled sharply and pressed the call button. We didn't hear a ring, she had it on silent, but the soft vibration was enough to give us hope. The footsteps reached the kitchen. "Closet!" he shouted. Valeria pressed her forehead against mine. In that moment, I wasn't angry at her for all our past disagreements. I wasn't the proud older sister who once refused her help. I was simply her little sister again, terrified and desperate for protection. "There's nothing back here," Tattooed Neck muttered. "Let's go. Marcus said she ain't even here. We just need collateral," the other replied. "Money gone? Then someone pays." Cold panic flooded me. Collateral. They were planning to take me, hurt me, worse. We heard them move around the kitchen one more time, then the front door slammed shut. Silence followed, like the house itself was holding its breath. Valeria waited a full minute before she unlocked the pantry door. We stepped out cautiously, nerves still standing on edge. The living room was a mess, cushions tossed, drawers open, her plant shattered on the floor. But they were gone. Valeria didn't hesitate. She raised the phone back to her ear. "Yes, hello, police?" she said, voice shaking but steady enough. "We need help immediately." I leaned against the counter, overwhelmed, nauseous. My son had unleashed wolves into our lives, and those wolves were willing to tear down doors to get what they wanted. When the officer arrived 20 minutes later, we sat on the porch wrapped in blankets. A kind black female officer took our statement, nodding grimly as she scribbled notes. "So, this is connected to your son?" she confirmed. My cheeks burned with shame as I nodded. "He stole my money, and now dangerous people are trying to collect." "We'll increase patrols in this neighborhood," the officer assured me, "but you should not go home alone. Those men may already know where you live." I swallowed hard. Everything that once kept me safe, my home, my savings, my son, now felt like the most dangerous place in the world. We called a locksmith to repair the shattered door. After what felt like hours of cleaning glass and setting chairs upright again, Valeria finally sat me down on the couch. "You're staying here," she said firmly, "until we figure this out." I opened my mouth to protest, but she raised one eyebrow in that older sister tone that never failed to silence me. "You need protection," she added, "and I need to know you're safe." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. I went upstairs to the guest bedroom. Valeria had decorated it in calming tones, soft yellows and lavender bedding. A tiny cross hung above the nightstand. I sank onto the mattress, my whole body trembling from the leftover adrenaline. I grabbed my phone to check for messages, half hoping, half terrified. I had one missed call from an unknown number and a text from Marcus. "Mom, don't go to the cops. You'll make everything worse." I stared at the screen in disbelief. No apology, no worry for my safety, just fear of consequences for himself. Another message followed before I could even process the first. "I'll fix it. Just stop talking to Aunt Valley." He still thought he could control me. Still thought I was the same mother who would sacrifice everything to keep him afloat. But that woman was gone. I blocked his number with shaking fingers. I set the phone down and curled onto my side, hugging a pillow to my chest as tears welled again. Grief for the son I lost long before tonight flooded me. Just as my eyes began to slip shut, I heard footsteps outside the bedroom. My heart quickened until Valeria gently knocked and peeked in. "You need anything, Evie?" Just hearing her call me by my childhood nickname softened something inside me. I shook my head. "Thank you for not saying, 'I told you so.'" She gave a small, loving smirk. I'm thinking it real loud, though. I let out a breath, a tiny laugh through tears, but then she grew serious. "We're going to get through this. Together." Those words were a blessing, a lifeline. When she left the room, I finally let myself close my eyes. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind was already racing ahead to tomorrow. Meetings with banks, lawyers, police reports, and the knowledge that somewhere out there, Marcus was tangled up in a world that would swallow him whole. But I couldn't chase him anymore. I had to chase my own survival. Still, just before sleep dragged me under, a whisper escaped my lips. "Lord, please bring my son back to me. Not the man he is now, but the boy he used to be, because even when a mother's heart breaks, pieces still remember how to love."
I sat at the kitchen table long after the sun slipped away, the room lit only by the dim glow of the stove clock, mocking me with each passing minute. 9:42 p.m., 9:57, 10:11. Time kept marching, but I felt stuck, trapped between a mother's love and a woman's breaking point. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from shame. I kept staring at my phone, scrolling through the text history with Marcus. Every message felt like a punch to the gut. The worst part wasn't that he had taken my money. It was how easily I had believed him, because a mother wants so desperately to think her child is telling the truth. I whispered into the empty room, "How could you do this to me, baby?" But his voice didn't echo back, only silence, and the hum of the refrigerator that sounded suddenly too loud. After hours of pacing, crying, praying for a miracle that wouldn't come, I did something I never thought I'd do. I dialed the police, not 911. I couldn't bring myself to do that. I pressed the non-emergency line and waited, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles hurt. When a woman answered, her voice was overly cheerful for how late it was. "Good evening, this is Officer Briggs. How can I help you tonight?" I swallowed. My throat felt like it was closing up. "Yes. Hello, my name is Lorraine Carter.
I need help. My son, he stole from me. The words felt like venom sliding off my tongue. How much was stolen? I shut my eyes. $76,000. There was a pause, a questioning silence. Maybe she thought I was confused, an old widow with memory problems. I straightened my back, forcing strength into my voice. He tricked me. He said he was in danger, that people were after him. He needed help. I sent them all I had. Ma'am, she said gently, did you file a report? My mouth dropped open. No, I didn't want him to go to jail. He's my son. He's just confused, in trouble. I sounded like every mother who ever covered for their child. The officer sighed softly. I understand, but if the money was stolen and you want it returned, we need to take action. Even if you don't press charges, we can help track him down. Just please tell me, are you safe? Safe? That was the most complicated question anyone had asked me in a long time. Physically, yes. Emotionally, I was free falling without a parachute. I'll be okay, I whispered. I just don't know what to do. I don't know who I can trust anymore. We can have someone come out there tonight if you like. No, I answered almost too quickly. The thought of police cars outside my house set my nerves on fire. I just needed to talk to someone, to hear what my options are. Then first thing tomorrow, come to the station, bring any record of the transfers. We'll take care of you. You're not alone, Mrs. Carter. But the moment I hung up, alone was the only thing I felt. My heart splintered at the idea of filing a report against him, my baby boy. I still remember how small he was the first time he wrapped his hand around my finger, how he cried on his first day of school, how he held me at his father's funeral, shaking. I raised that child. I loved him into existence, and now I had to face the truth that felt like a blade to the ribs. He didn't love me back enough to stop himself. I curled into my chair, hugging myself, rocking gently like I used to rock him when he was scared. But I was the scared one now. By midnight, I stood up, legs trembling. I locked all the doors, slid the chain on, then checked each window twice. I wasn't scared of strangers. I was scared of my own son. When I finally moved to my bedroom, I paused by the mirror. My reflection looked like a stranger, eyes swollen from crying, hair wild, robe loosely tied like I'd just survived a storm. Maybe I had. Before I crawled into bed, I did something that surprised even me. I picked up my notebook from my nightstand, my gratitude journal the pastor encouraged us to keep, and I wrote just one sentence. God, give me strength to survive the ones I love. I stared at those words so long that they began to blur. Then slowly, painfully, I closed the book. And I realized surviving someone you love might be the hardest battle of all. The next morning, sunlight poured through my blinds, bright, almost intrusive, as if the world had no intention of slowing down just because mine had. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long while before I found the courage to stand. Every move felt heavy. Coffee didn't even taste like coffee. It tasted like worry. I had just set the cup down when a hard knock rattled my front door. My heart stopped. I wasn't expecting anybody, and knocks like that, they never meant good news. I crept toward the door on shaky legs, peeking through the curtain just enough to see two people on my porch, a man and a woman, dressed clean, police badges clipped to their belts. My mouth dried up instantly. Oh, Lord, they came anyway. I cracked the door open, chain still locked in place. Mrs. Carter? The male officer asked. Yes? I managed, voice barely there. We're from the department. Officer Briggs notified us of your situation. We just wanted to make sure you're all right. Heat rushed to my face. Embarrassment, fear, guilt, all tangled together. I didn't expect someone to come here. I whispered, we understand this is difficult, the woman officer added gently. But when finances and safety overlap, it's important you're not alone. They asked if they could step inside. I hesitated, but then I opened the door wider. For the first time in days, I noticed how messy my house looked. Papers scattered, the blanket from last night still draped over the chair, a mug with dried coffee. I felt like my chaos was laid bare for strangers to witness. We sat around my table, the same table where I had raised my children, where so many prayers were said over steaming meals. And now, this. The officers took notes while I explained everything. The calls, the threats Marcus claimed were real, the transfers, the lies. Every detail was a stab to the heart. The woman officer leaned forward. "Mrs. Carter, has your son ever done anything like this before?" I swallowed hard. "Not to me, but he's always chased quick money, always running from mistakes he doesn't want to fix." The man nodded. "We see this more often than you'd think. Family. It can get complicated." Complicated. A gentle word for a violent betrayal. "We can start a formal case," the woman officer said. "You don't have to press charges right now, but it gives us the ability to track his activity, and it protects you." I twisted my fingers together, an old nervous habit. Tears gathered again, threatening to spill. "I'm scared," I confessed, "not of him hurting me, but of what this will do to him. What if I ruin him forever?" The male officer's voice softened. "Ma'am, he made choices that have consequences. You're not punishing him. You're protecting yourself." I took a long, trembling breath. "I'll file the report," I finally said. A weight lifted. Slightly, yet another dropped right into its place. As they were getting ready to leave, the woman officer paused near the door. "One more thing," she said. "If he contacts you asking for more money, call us immediately. Don't respond, not even to say no. He knows you're vulnerable right now." Vulnerable. The truth stung. After they left, the house fell silent again. Too silent. I stood staring at the closed door for what felt like an hour. Then my phone rang. I froze. His name lit up the screen. Marcus. My pulse pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I didn't answer. Not this time. But seconds later, ping. A text. Ping. Another. Ping. 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 A flood of messages. First begging, then blaming, then threatening, just like the officer said. I clutched the phone to my chest, eyes burning with tears. I whispered to the empty air, "Lord, please don't let me break." Because there's nothing harder than turning your back on the child you would have died for. I didn't sleep that night, not even a second. I lay there staring at the ceiling, phone glowing beside me like a tiny, relentless demon. Marcus kept switching tactics. One message cursing me for abandoning him, the next pleading that he'd pay me back soon, then screenshots of what looked like death threats from someone else. But the officers warned me, do not respond. So I didn't. I turned the sound off, but the vibration still rattled against the nightstand like a heartbeat gone wrong. By sunrise, I felt like my soul had been scraped raw. The world outside didn't care. Birds sang anyway. Light came through the blinds like always, but I didn't feel like the same woman I was a week ago. I made myself breakfast I couldn't eat. Toast and eggs turned cold on the plate. I just sat there staring, wondering how a mother could feel so powerless in her own home. I tried to distract myself, cleaning, folding clothes, watering the plants, but my mind kept looping one line. He stole from me, my own son. Somewhere around mid-morning, my phone finally went still. No more buzzing, no more explosions of fear every few seconds. Silence can be a blessing and a warning. I almost wished he'd text again just so I know where he was, what he was thinking. I kept pacing near the window. Every passing car made my heart jump. Every shadow outside felt like a threat. I kept checking the lock like I'd forgotten what safety meant. At noon, the phone lit up again, not with him this time, but with a call from Janice, my oldest daughter, the one who worked 2 jobs to support her own children, the one who had warned me countless times that Marcus was not right. I braced myself and answered, "Ma, you okay?" Her voice cracked something open inside me, and I had to bite my lip before the sob escaped. "I'm trying, but baby, I don't know what to do. I'll be there in 30 minutes before you can protest. Don't go anywhere." I didn't move from the couch. I just waited, hands pressed together as though prayer alone was holding me upright. When she arrived, she wrapped her arms around me so tight I finally let myself cry. Not the quiet kind, the ugly, shaking, I can't breathe kind. She just held me through all of it. When I finally calmed, she pulled back and looked me right in the eyes. "Ma, we can't let him keep doing this to you." "I know," I said, wiping my face, "but he's my baby. He's 30, Ma. He ain't been a baby for a long time." She sat me down and made me tell her everything, from the first tearful phone call to the threats last night. She didn't get emotional. She didn't get angry. She got focused, protective, like the roles had reversed and she was now the mother. "Look," she said firmly, "you did the right thing contacting the police. And if he tries anything else, anything, you call me. You call them. You call everybody. We're not doing this alone." Her strength was like a warm blanket around my heart. We talked for hours, but she eventually had to leave for her evening shift. Before she walked out, she kissed my forehead the way I used to do for her. "You're safe. I'll make sure of it." When she left, the house felt too quiet again, but not the same suffocating quiet as before. It was a quiet with a small flame of courage inside it. I decided to take a long bath. Water has always been my refuge, the one thing that washes fear into something softer, something bearable. By the time dusk settled, I felt maybe, just maybe, I could sleep tonight. But then, just as I slipped into pajamas, I heard it. A soft thud on the porch, followed by another. My pulse caught in my throat. I crept toward the door, peeking through the curtain. Nothing there, just the outline of my yard. My pulse hammered. I told myself I was imagining things, nerves playing tricks, until I opened the door just an inch. A cardboard box sat on the welcome mat. No delivery truck in sight, no note on top, just a plain brown box like any other package. But the address label didn't say a company name. The sender line said only, "Your loving son." Oh God, I crouched, hands trembling as I pulled the box inside. A sick feeling churned in my stomach, some awful intuition telling me this wasn't an apology gift or a peace offering. It felt like a trap. I stared at it on the kitchen table, too afraid to open. After several minutes of pacing, praying, trying to steady my breath, I grabbed scissors and sliced the tape. Inside was a stack of envelopes, bank notices, withdrawal receipts, loan agreements I never signed, all in my name. My heart stopped when I reached the last sheet, bright red lettering across the top. Final notice of foreclosure processing. Immediate action required. A date, a deadline, 3 weeks from today. My hands went ice cold. Beneath the papers lay a phone, not mine, a burner phone, cheap and worn. As soon as I touched it, the screen lit up. One message from Marcus. "Open the door, Ma." My body went numb. Terror crawled up my spine, cold and sharp. Another message popped up instantly. "I'm already here." And then a shadow moved across my living room window. I gasped so hard it hurt because nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened next. The doorknob rattled like the house itself was afraid. I stood frozen, heart pounding so hard I could feel it pressing against my ribs. My mind screamed, "Call the police," but my feet wouldn't move because no matter what he'd done, no matter how much he'd taken from me, that was still my son on the other side of that door, or at least the shell of the boy I raised. "Ma," Marcus called from outside, voice low and rough, "Don't play with me. I know you're in there." His words slithered through the wood, wrapping around my resolve like a tightening rope. I pressed my hand against my mouth to muffle the sound of my trembling breaths. Every survival instinct I had told me, do not open that door. But guilt, love, fear, they all punched holes in those instincts. He jiggled the knob again. Harder this time. The keep deadbolt groaned under the pressure. For a split second, I wondered if it would hold. Then a loud thump. He kicked it. Another and another. I jumped back. "Marcus, stop!" I finally cried out, voice cracking. His footsteps paused, silence stretched out like a razor's edge. Then he spoke, voice trembling with anger and something darker. You turned on me. You called the cops. You think I don't know? He laughed, a short, bitter, chilling sound. You owe me, Ma. After everything I've been through, after all the years you cared more about everyone else, my blood ran cold. Because those weren't the words of a desperate son. Those were the accusations of a man who had already rewritten the truth in his mind. I forced my voice to steady. You need help, baby. Real help. Let me get you somewhere safe to. No, he barked, cutting me off. I need money, and you're going to give it to me, one way or another. My hand inched toward the burner phone he'd left in the box. I tapped 9-1, ready to finish the call the second he tried something. Marcus, I said carefully, I can't. I don't have anything left. You took it. He banged the door so hard the frame shook. I nearly dropped the phone. Liar, he shouted. You always keep something from me. You've always held out. I squeezed my eyes shut, tears spilling. I loved you. I still do. But I can't help you hurt me anymore. Something in the air shifted. A moment of stillness, broken only by my ragged breathing. He stopped banging. I could picture him out there, chest rising and falling, anger simmering like a pot about to boil over. Open the door, he demanded again. Quieter, more dangerous. I clutched the counter to keep from collapsing. I filed the report. The police know everything. Silence. A suffocating, heavy silence. I could almost feel him thinking through the other side of that wood. Then footsteps moved away, slow, calculated ones, circling around the house. He was looking for another way in, and I suddenly felt like prey. I ran through the kitchen into the hallway, ensuring every window latch was down tight. The back door locked. The bathroom window locked. My breath came in panicked gasp as I checked each one twice. Then I heard it, the clink of tools, metal scraping glass. He was trying to pry open the window beside the living room. Panic rose like fire in my chest. I crouched behind the couch, shaking, fingers dialing the last digit. 911, what's your emergency? My son, he's trying to break in. Please, please send someone. Stay somewhere safe in the home, the operator said calmly. Units are en route. Do not confront him. Too late. Marcus's voice drifted through the glass, eerily calm now. Ma, don't make this harder than it has to be. He sounded close enough that if the glass broke, you would be in my living room in seconds. I'm not going to jail for this, he yelled. I'm not letting you throw me away. Throw me away. That's what he believed this was. Even after draining my savings, even after putting my home, my future at risk, even after turning into someone I barely recognized, in his mind, I was betraying him. Tears ran hot down my face. I loved you, baby. I still do, but I can't help you hurt me anymore. A loud crack split the air. The window frame gave way just a little, but enough to let in a cold rush of night air. I stifled a scream. He was getting closer. Mrs. Carter, officers are almost there. Stay hidden. I crouched lower, heart roaring in my ears. My hand shook so badly the phone rattled. The shadows outside shifted again. He grunted with effort, glass creaking under pressure. I braced myself for that moment, the one where hope leaves completely. But then, sirens, red and blue lights flashed against the window. Marcus froze. I saw his silhouette jerk in surprise. Then heavy footsteps sprinted toward my porch. Police! Step away from the house! Every ounce of me wanted to collapse in relief, but my fear didn't loosen its grip. Not yet. I heard shouting, rustling, cursing, Marcus running through bushes, boots pounding behind him. A masculine voice roaring to stop, hands where I can see them. More yelling. Something slammed against wood, a fence perhaps, then silence. Except for radios crackling, I stayed curled behind the couch until someone knocked, a calmer, authoritative knock this time. Mrs. Carter, it's Officer Briggs. You're safe now. Safe. The word didn't settle. It hovered, as fragile as a soap bubble ready to pop. With shaking legs, I stepped out of my hiding place. My living room looked the same, yet nothing inside me did. Briggs stood at the door. His eyes held pity and professionalism all at once. We have your son in custody. Those words hit me like a blow. Custody. Marcus behind bars. Because of me. A hand covered my mouth as a sob escaped. Briggs guided me to the couch before my knees gave out. He was resisting arrest. The officer continued carefully. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to finalize the report. Tonight, you should try to rest. Rest. As if that were possible. After the officers left, my house fell back into stillness, but now it felt haunted. Every corner held echoes of what just happened. I hugged myself tightly, rocking just a little without realizing. I should have felt relief, gratitude, safety, but instead, I felt like the ground beneath me had split open because tonight I lost my son to the darkness he chose, and I didn't know if I'd ever get him back. I stared at the broken window, the proof of how close I came to losing everything, and whispered, Lord, help me survive what comes next. My tears fell quietly onto the floorboards. Then the burner phone buzzed again where it still lay on the table. Not from Marcus, from an unknown number.
I didn't touch that phone. I stared at it like it was a snake coiled and waiting to strike, the message still glowing on the screen. This isn't over. Every word sent a chill crawling up my spine. My knees felt weak again, and I gripped the edge of the table just to stay upright. I wanted to scream, for someone to sit here with me, for someone to promise that the worst was behind me, but the only voice in the room was my own terrified breathing. The police lights had faded, the sirens were long gone, and I was alone. Still trembling, I grabbed a trash bag, scooped up the burner phone with a pair of tongs like it was toxic, and sealed it inside. I shoved it under the sink, slamming the cabinet shut like that alone could silence the threat. But fear doesn't go quiet that easily. I double-checked the front door, triple-checked the locks. Then I dragged a chair over and shoved it beneath the doorknob, a laughable barrier against someone determined enough to break a window. My house, the home I worked an entire life to keep, suddenly felt like a trap. I spent the night on the living room floor, back against the wall, where I could see every exit. My phone clutched tight, blanket pulled over me like armor, not a wink of sleep. Every noise outside, a passing car, wind brushing a tree branch, the creak of my own house settling, made me flinch. Hours stretched like elastic, thin and painful. When morning finally arrived, it wasn't gentle. Light forced its way into the room, revealing the mess. Shattered confidence, a broken window, and a mother who didn't recognize her own life anymore. The house was quiet, but inside me, panic still screamed. I showered, though my hands shook so badly I could barely wash my face. I forced myself into clean clothes, something that made me feel like a person instead of a victim, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked older, tired, in a way sleep couldn't fix. Grief, guilt, fear, they were all visible in the lines around my eyes. But underneath that, somewhere deep, I saw something else. Resolve. I whispered to my reflection, get up, keep going. Because if I fell apart, who would rebuild what he tried to destroy? I drove to the police station with both hands clenched so tight around the steering wheel that my knuckles turned white. The officer from last night, Briggs, met me in a small private room. He smiled gently, but his eyes looked exhausted, like mine. He said, "We have Marcus in holding. He'll be transferred soon." My heart twisted. "Where?" He said, "County detention." He said, "There will be an arraignment tomorrow. The judge will determine if he qualifies for bail." Bail. He might get out. I swallowed the dread rising in my throat. "What charges?" He said, "Attempted break-in, resisting arrest, and multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. These are serious, Mrs. Carter." I closed my eyes. I never wanted this for him. Briggs nodded softly. "I know, but these are the consequences of his actions, not yours." He handed me more documents, statements to sign, a victim's rights pamphlet, contact numbers, paperwork piled like proof of the damage he'd done. But one form stopped me cold. Victim impact statement. Describe how the accused actions have harmed you. How do you put into words? He broke my heart. He ruined my trust. He tried to destroy the only thing I had left, my peace. Briggs must have seen the pain in my face because he spoke gently. "You don't have to write it today. Take your time. Just know you deserve protection. You deserve justice." For a moment,
I believed him. When I got home, Janice was pulling into my driveway. She rushed to hug me like she'd been holding her breath since yesterday. "I'm staying with you tonight," she demanded. No arguments. I didn't argue. We spent the afternoon fixing the window with plywood, sweeping up the glass, trying to restore some normalcy. She cooked dinner, her famous garlic chicken, and insisted I eat every bite. The food warmed my stomach, but the fear still lived in my chest like an unwelcome tenant. After dinner, she sat across from me, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "Ma," she said, voice lower, more careful. "Do you want him to come back home after all this?" The question hit me like a punch. I want my son back, but I don't know if the man he is now will ever be that boy again. Janice nodded sadly. I get it. We talked about the foreclosure notices, about the bank, about what losing my home would mean for both of us. She promised, "We'll fight this, every step." Hearing her say that was like inhaling air I'd been starved of. But later that night, after she went to sleep in the guest room, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the plywood over the broken glass, and I cried. Not soft tears, but the aching, body-shaking sobs of a mother torn in two. Because love doesn't disappear just because someone hurts you. It just gets tangled in pain. Around midnight, the phone rang. Not the trash-bagged burner, my real phone. I wiped my eyes and checked the screen. Unknown number. My heart seized, but something, maybe foolish hope, made me answer. A man's voice crackled on the end. "Mrs. Carter? Yes? This is Officer Graham. We have a situation with your son." My stomach flipped. "What happened? Is he hurt?" Silence buzzed through the line, cold and endless. "He's missing. He has escaped during transport." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room tilted beneath me. "What do you mean, missing?" I choked out. "The officer said he escaped during transport. We are actively searching for him. We need you to stay home. Keep your doors locked and call us if you see anything or if he attempts contact again." My soul turned to ice. The call ended, but the terror stayed, gripping me by the throat. I stumbled toward the guest room, shaking Janice awake. "Baby," I whispered, voice trembling uncontrollably. "Marcus is gone. He escaped." Janice sat up, fear instantly replacing sleep. She grabbed her phone and locked the bedroom door. My own legs wouldn't stop shaking. I pressed a hand to the bedroom window, peering into the night. Dark, still, too quiet. Somewhere out there, my son was running loose, angry, desperate, feeling betrayed. And I knew he would come back to finish what he started. Then a sudden noise echoed outside, a heavy thud near the fence. Janice gasped, reaching for my hand. "Ma, what was that?" My pulse hammered as I stepped backward, eyes still locked on the window. Then a voice, low, familiar, too close. "Ma?" It slithered through the glass like smoke. "Marcus." "Ma, I told you, this isn't over."
The courthouse smelled like old wood and tension. I could feel my pulse in my throat as I sat behind the prosecutor's table, hands clasped so tightly my knuckles turned white. The room buzzed with whispers, strangers curious to witness a family tearing itself apart in public. And then the doors opened. Marcus walked in wearing a suit that didn't belong to him, stiff, borrowed dignity. His eyes flicked toward me for only a second, but it was enough. The boy I once rocked to sleep, the teenager I once grounded, the man I still prayed for, was now the defendant. His wrists weren't cuffed, but he might as well have been in chains. I swallowed back a wave of nausea, guilt, love, hurt. They all collided inside me like a storm. The prosecutor stood and began speaking, his voice sharp and steady. "Your Honor, this is a case of financial exploitation of a vulnerable senior." The words sliced through me. I shouldn't have been shocked. I'd already lived that label, but hearing it aloud felt like being pushed underwater. Vulnerable, senior, victim. I hated it. I hated that my love had been interpreted as weakness. Marcus stared straight ahead, jaw set tight like he was the one betrayed. His jawline twitched, the same tell he had as a boy whenever he was scared but trying to look brave. I wanted to stand up and shout, "He's still my son!" I wanted to run to him and wrap my arms around him. I wanted to demand justice for every tear he made me shed. Instead, I just sat there, trying to breathe. The prosecutor showed bank records, Withdrawal after withdrawal, receipts from casinos, wire transfers I never approved. The truth laid bare in black and white. Then they played the voicemail. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom. "Mama, trust me. I'll take care of everything. Just sign the transfer form. I promise you won't regret it." Every syllable was a knife. People turned and looked at me, pity in their eyes like I was already broken. Marcus finally spoke. Not to the judge, not to the jury, but to me. His lips formed the words silently. "I'm sorry, and Lord help me." That hurt more than everything else. The judge asked if I wanted to give a victim statement. My breath caught. I rose on shaky legs, walked to the podium, and looked right at Marcus. "My son made a mistake," I began, voice trembling, "but he is not a mistake." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. I raised him to know better, and he did know better. But life got heavy, and he chose a dark path. He was my easy target because he knew my heart. I paused, tears threatening to spill. He took my money, yes, but worse, he took my trust. And trust, I whispered, is a debt no one can repay. Marcus's eyes glossed with tears. For the first time, I saw remorse, or maybe just fear of consequences. I couldn't tell. "I want justice," I continued, finding strength I didn't know I still had. "But I also want my son back. I don't know if it's possible to have both." I exhaled and stepped away, my legs barely cooperating. The judge called a recess. People stood, lawyers shuffled papers, but all I could focus on was Marcus, my baby boy, who looked like the loneliest man in the world. As I left the courtroom, Phoebe gripped my hand tightly. "You did what you had to do," she whispered. But inside, I wondered, had I saved him or destroyed him?
Recess felt like purgatory. I stood outside the courtroom, staring at the sky through tall windows that made everything look colder than it was. The day felt like it couldn't decide whether to rain or shine, just like me, torn between heartbreak and hope. Phoebe handed me a cup of coffee, but my hands were shaking too badly to drink. "Aunt Leela," she said gently, "no matter what happens, you've already shown grace." Grace. I didn't feel graceful. I felt gutted. When court resumed, the judge asked Marcus to speak. He stood, too fast, like he wanted to get the pain over with. He cleared his throat, and for a moment he looked like that little boy who once hid behind my legs on his first day of school. His voice cracked as he began. "Your Honor, I let desperation make me someone I don't recognize. I knew my mother trusted me. I used that to cover my mistakes, and I am sorry, not because I'm in trouble, but because I hurt the only person who never gave up on me." My heart twisted painfully because I wanted to believe him. He continued, "I don't expect forgiveness today, but I hope one day I can earn it." His lawyer leaned in, instructing him to sit. Marcus wiped his face aggressively, as if tears were some enemy to be defeated. The judge tapped his pen against the bench, a slow, deliberate rhythm like a ticking clock. "This case is not just about theft," he began. "It is about the violation of a sacred bond between parent and child." I felt the entire courtroom holding its breath. "But it is also clear this mother holds out hope for redemption." Marcus and I both looked up. The judge wasn't finished. "In considering sentencing, I aim to balance accountability with the possibility of restored family trust." My palms pressed together, praying silently. Finally, the hammer of fate came down. The court sentences Marcus Reynolds to 3 years of probation, mandatory financial restitution, and enrollment in a gambling recovery program. Probation, not prison. My knees nearly gave out in relief, but also fear, because now Marcus's choices were his alone. There would be no iron bars forcing him to face his truth. The judge turned his gaze to Marcus with one final warning. "You are receiving a second chance. Don't make your mother regret giving you one." As court adjourned, Marcus turned toward me slowly. His eyes searched mine, not for anger, but for the possibility of a future, a fragile, uncertain one. I walked up to him, close enough to see the tremble in his lip, close enough to smell his cologne, cheap, but trying. For a moment, we just stood there in silence, years of love and disappointment floating between us. Then I whispered, "Build something better out of this, please." He lowered his head and nodded. Phoebe guided me away, knowing I wasn't ready to process the gravity of what had just happened. I kept looking back, staring at my son, a man who now had to prove he was more than the worst thing he had ever done. As we stepped outside into the late afternoon air, the first drop of rain finally fell.
6 months passed. Seasons changed. My heart did too. Some mornings I woke up still angry. Other mornings I woke up grateful that there was still a chance for something better. Healing, I learned, isn't a straight line. It's a long road with pit stops for prayer. Marcus attended his recovery meetings. He took a job at a local auto shop, sweeping floors and eventually fixing engines, grease on his hands instead of guilt. Every week he sent a payment, no matter how small, toward the money he owed. Every envelope came with a handwritten note. "Still trying. Thank you for not giving up. I love you, Mama." Those notes were worth more than the dollars inside. Phoebe kept me busy. Dinners, bingo, church events, and sometimes she dropped by with that same mischievous glimmer in her eyes, reminding me that friendship can be both medicine and mischief. But the real test came one Sunday after service. I stepped outside and saw Marcus waiting by my car. He looked nervous, holding a tiny seedling in a pot, a baby oak tree, a symbol of roots and of time. He cleared his throat. "I wanted to give you something that grows, not something that disappears." My breath caught. He placed it gently in my hands, a quiet promise wrapped in soil and hope. "Mom," he whispered, voice trembling, "I can't change what I did, but I'm changing who I am. And if you let me, I'd like to earn my place in your life again." I looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity and finally finding it. His shoulders sagged like he'd been holding up a mountain and was finally allowed to set it down. I reached for his hand. "Forgiveness," I told him softly, "is something we build, one day at a time." Marcus's tears spilled over, but this time so did mine. Only now they tasted different, not bitter, not broken, just real. We drove to my backyard and planted that seedling together. Handfuls of earth, awkward laughter, silent prayers. A new beginning. The sun dipped low, bathing us in gold. A mother and son, rebuilding piece by piece. The tree looked small, fragile, but strong enough to take root, like us. As I covered the last bit of soil, I whispered in my heart, love lost can be found again. Trust shattered can be mended. And families, even cracked ones, can still grow tall. I stood up, wiped my hands, and looked at my son. Truly looked. "We're gonna be okay," I said. Marcus nodded, breathing out a relief 6 months overdue. In the soft hush of that evening, with dirt under our nails and forgiveness blooming at our feet, I finally felt it. We were on our way home.